Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and this is my top 10 all-time favourite fiction list, revised for 2024. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, time to revisit my top 10 all-time favourite fiction books today, fiction novels. I originally made my list in 2023, February 2023, only about a month after I started my BookTube channel. I will pop that list up on screen so you can see where we're at, where the list was before I revised it. But yeah, I hadn't really, when I made this, kind of read that much, I would say, in terms of adult fiction. I'd read around about 200-ish adult fiction books at that point, which isn't really a huge amount over the course of like 25 years of reading that adult fiction. And certainly not like compared to what I've added on since I've been on BookTube. I wasn't really that big a fiction reader, to be honest, before 2020. I read mostly horror with bits of other things peppered in. And I read a lot more non-fiction back then. But if we fast forward to now, in the last 20 months of being on BookTube, I've read an additional 180 something works of fiction, which is nearly as much as the previous 25 years combined. So I think it's time to revisit that list, because within that 180 something books that I've read over the past 20 months, I think it's safe to say that there are a few new favourites that I've found. So I need to slot those into that top 10 and see what it looks like with those in it. As I say, these are all novels, something I've kind of decided to stick with. Rather than novellas. I'm not allowing novellas onto the list. Novellas and short stories, I think, are quite a different experience. I look for different things in them, that kind of thing. So I'll come up with a separate list, I think, of novellas in the future. So when I talk about favourites, I'm not talking about the best necessarily in terms of the best, objectively in terms of writing quality, style, etc., all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the best experiences for me, basically, my favourite experiences. Those experiences should be super memorable, even if it's been years since I read that particular book. Memorable not just in terms of the plot, characters, setting, etc., but also, and predominantly really, the experience that I had reading that book. All the books have to have had a lasting impact, or I've got to be pretty certain that they will have a lasting impact further down the line for those that are coming in that are a little more recent additions. I think mainly they've got to be books that I constantly find myself thinking about, that pop into my head on a regular basis. The sort of things that when I'm doing a tag, always come up as answers to tag questions. And so I have to think of something else, so I'm not talking about the same books all the damn time. And they've got to be books that I would be happy to read again to go on this list. They've got to be stuff where, if someone said, you've got to read that again tomorrow, I'd be excited to do that. So without further ado then, let's get on to the 2024 edition of my top 10 all-time favourite fiction books. So, some changes at the bottom of the list. We are losing The Hobbit, Foucault's Pendulum, and The Exorcist. I need to fit some stuff in, and so they are the ones that are going to get lost from this list. They would only get bumped back a little bit into a top 20, I think. They would all remain in the top 20. I still love them dearly. But there are other things that have superseded them. So number 10 becomes The Minotaur Takes a Cigarette Break. A book that I absolutely adore, that I've talked about numerous times, most recently in my video on Friday. But yeah, I love that book. It holds a very special place for me, largely because of the time that I think I read it, but it is a beautifully written story as well. So in at number 9 then, we get our first new entry, and that is Nights at the Circus by Angela Carter. I read this in May, I think. Yeah, May last year. And it absolutely knocked my socks off. Not just in terms of the boldness, the vibrancy, the bonkersness of the story and the characters, but in Carter's mastery of the writing, of language, of writing craft, etc. It is an absolutely incredible piece of work. I was drawn into it completely. I had it on audiobook, and that, I think that for me, that was definitely the way to experience it. The writing is, it's quite a lot to get your head around. There's a lot in there. And it's so theatrical anyway, the story, that I think having someone perform it as an audiobook, and it was Adjoa Ando who did the narration / performance for the audiobook, who was magnificent. That very lively story came to life even more. So yeah, an absolutely brilliant book, and the one that really kind of got me wanting to read more of Carter's work, because, as I say, the plot and characters and stuff like that aside, which are brilliant, it's Carter's writing style, prose style, which is just astounding. I'm kind of in awe of it. Okay, number 8 then. This is The Shadow of the Wind now. That was at number 5. It has dropped down a couple of places, but I still love it dearly. Again, I've mentioned it a couple of times on the channel, most recently in my video on Friday. But yeah, absolutely beautifully written, very warm, very intriguing literary mystery, which kicks off a fantastic series as well by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. So yeah, that absolutely stays in the top 10. In at number 7 is The Shining, which was at number 4. So that has also dropped down a few places. I did and ah about restricting myself to one Stephen King book for this list, but I couldn't do it. It is the only author with 2 books on the list, but I kind of think that's fair because he's the author I've read most of by far. I've read, I think, 20 of his novels and several more of his short story or novella collections, and a couple of his non-fiction works as well. And so yeah, when I've read 20 from an author, I think it's fair to have a couple in my top 10, especially when he is, one of my favourites, for sure. So The Shining stays in. I cannot get rid of it. It's my first King. It's what got me into horror, and there are sections of that book which still, pop into my head on a regular basis, as kind of, sort of the examples I hold up as, how to scare me, how to thrill me, how to give me chills. And yeah, it's just, as I say, it will always be a dear one to me because it was my first. Okay, number 6 then. This was Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. This is the only one in the original top 10 which kind of has gone completely. And I'm not even sure whether I'd have it in the top 20. And this is because I'm pretty sure its inclusion originally was largely due to some recency bias. It's still a great book. I love it, don't get me wrong. And it's, I still have strong memories of it, and very much enjoyed it. But as time's gone by, it's not one that's stuck with me in the same way as a lot of other books. And I'd only read it relatively recently when I first did this list. So I'm going to put that down to recency bias. I'm going to remove it from that top 10. So coming in at number 6 then is a new entry, one that I really didn't think when I decided I was going to read this, that I never thought would make it into a top 10 favourites list. And that is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This was a complete shock to me, that I liked it, let alone loved it. I was doing a month of reading a couple of fantasy books, and this one was all over the internet, and it sounded a bit bonkers. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go. Why not? And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love it. This one is in here because it is just one of those books that is so entertaining and so much comfort. I think it's a comfort read more than anything else. That it's just brought me so much entertainment over the sort of 20 months since I read it. It can't fail to be on here. It's like if I'm feeling a bit poorly, or I'm feeling glum, or I'm having trouble sleeping, or I just want something really easy and chilled and cozy to listen to that I know well, then that's what gets thrown on as an audiobook. I think I've listened to it a total of 5 times to date. I did a full re-listen, buddy re-listen with my sister back in May, which was fantastic. We both loved it. It's really good listening to it with someone when we were away on holiday. But as I say, I've had it on in the evenings, or when I've been travelling or something like that, just for something that's so familiar, and like having an old friend in the room. It's one of those. It's just a fixture of my life, I think, now. So that one absolutely has to go in this list. It has given me, and will continue to give me, a huge amount of joy, I think. Okay, number 5 then. This is It Now by Stephen King. This was at number 3. This is still my favourite Stephen King. It is a flawed book. There are quite a few things that are wrong with it, but there's so much about it that's great. It does legitimately scare me, sections of that, and it just gets into my head. It has invaded kind of my conscious real life, if you like, when I've been reading it or listening to it late at night, and then I've had to take the dog out. It's kind of still in my head, and it makes me quite jumpy and stuff, in a fun way. But yeah, I really enjoy it. I really like the characters. I like the kind of the epic length of it. I don't even mind that much the stuff with the turtle and things like that. As I say, there are other elements to it, which we all know what I'm talking about if you've read it, that I don't like so much. But generally speaking, it's just one of those. I love the concept of it, and the characters are fantastic in it. The Losers Club, I absolutely adore them. So yeah, it stays in the top 10, but at number 5. So in at number 4, we've got another edition, a new edition, and that is with Lanny by Max Porter. One of my favourite reads of this year. I read that back in February, March time this year. Again, this was another one that just wowed me in so many ways. The concept of it, the warmth of it, the way that Porter plays with language forms, structure, that kind of thing, with visual forms, how the words are laid out and sort of, kind of move across the page. The lyricism of it, the characters, the setting, everything about it. I absolutely adore that book. It's one of those where I really can't find anything I don't like about it. It's another one where I am in awe of the writing and the imagination and the creativity of Max Porter. It's quite a short book. It's like 225 pages, and I read it almost in one sitting because it was just captivating, and it has not left my mind since I read it. And I've kind of badgered my wife into reading it, and she loved it when she actually got around to reading it. My mum's got my copy at the moment. She's absolutely loved it, and I will sing its praises to anyone. I think it's an absolutely phenomenal piece of creative writing. Okay, number three then. Number three and number two were really difficult to decide which way round they should go. And to be honest, I keep going backwards and forwards with these. But for now, this is where I've landed. But they are so very, very close. So number three at the moment is Project Hail Mary, which has dropped one space from number two. This is another fantastic comfort read. I think I've listened to this 3 or 4 times since I first read it, which was back in 2022. It was and still is my favourite audiobook experience to date. Ray Porter's narration of it, a performance of it is brilliant. It's got one of the best buddy relationships I've ever come across in any piece of media in it, and it just has a magic to it for me. So number two then, what has, for the time being, knocked Project Hail Mary off that spot? It's more science fiction. It's Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This was one from this is a recent one, so I don't think this is recency bias. I read this in July, and yeah, it floored me, really, I think, at how much I enjoyed it. I just devoured it. I wanted to listen to it every minute I had. I was painting the loft at the time, so I had lots of time to listen to audiobooks whilst I was doing the painting. And yeah, it just made that horrible job, because I hate decorating, made that horrible job fly by. I was just so engrossed in it. I think the way that Tchaikovsky tells us this story of the evolution of these spiders on the planet, on the terraformed planet, it was just so well done. The evolution of a society from normal sort of spiders through to this technologically and socially, culturally advanced, sentient race of spiders, was so easy to connect to because of the way that Tchaikovsky wrote it. It was fascinating in terms of its kind of social science side of things, but the way he uses naming conventions to keep you connected to the spiders during their long history whilst we're seeing their evolution, and the description, things like that. I could visualize things so clearly in that book. And I mean, the human characters and the world building around it all was fantastic as well. I loved the human characters as well, but it's the spiders that really just stole my heart stole my heart entirely. And yeah, I went straight from that one onto the second one in the series, Children of Ruin, and then read Children of Memory in September. And those two are fantastic books as well. But Children of Time is something special, absolutely something special. And again, it has not left my mind since. And I'm already, as I say, it's only July when I finished it, but I'm already hankering after a reread of it. Although I am going to try and resist that and go and read some more Adrian Tchaikovsky now, because yeah, I think he has the potential to really become a favourite author. I've read the three of those and a couple of other things by him, but yeah, he's up there. He's up there definitely. So yeah, Children of Time comes in at number 2. And then it probably won't surprise anybody who watches the channel regularly to know that The Passage ain't going anywhere. Nothing can come close. Even Children of Time and Project Hail Mary, which are absolutely phenomenal books. The Passage just is special to me. It is absolutely streaks ahead as my favourite. I'm literally just about to finish up a re-listening to the audiobook, which I haven't done in a couple of years. I used to do a yearly reread or re-listen to it. And yeah, it's as soon as I started, and I kind of went for it because I'm in a slump at the moment, and I thought I just need something that I'll hopefully be able to engage with and just kind of still be able to listen to something. in the evenings and stuff. And as soon as I put it on, I was back in it, and I've kind of ripped through it reasonably quickly. It's a long book. It's like 36 hours of audio, and I've just, again, I've wanted to listen to it every moment I've got in the evenings. It's been brilliant for that. So it is just one of those books where, as I've said before, I can pinpoint, I can look objectively at some of the the writing craft elements and things, and point to why I like it, why I love it so much, what I think is great about it in that respect. But then there's also something that I can't name. I can't put my finger on. There's just something about it that makes it mine. that just is for me. So The Passage stays at number 1 as my all-time favourite book. It is going to take something incredibly special to knock that off. So there we go. That is the new revised top 10 all-time favourite fiction novels for 2024. That can stay as is now, probably for another couple of years, when hopefully I'll have read another 100 plus books, 100 plus novels, and then we'll revisit it again when I no doubt will have some new favourites. But yeah, that's where it sits for now. I'm quite happy with that, getting some of those excellent books in that I've read over the last nearly 2 years now. So that will do from me today, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching, as always. Do drop your thoughts in the comments below. Are any of my top 10 favourites also yours? Do let me know that. I will be back possibly in the week with a tag video, but if not, I'll be back on Friday with my thoughts on The Giver by Lois Lowry, one of my reads from my Science Fiction for the Somewhat Hesitant reading project. So I do hope you'll join me for that then. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.